What remains when you let go? This is where your destiny begins. Have you ever tried holding a rope that's being pulled hard on the other end? Your palms burn, your shoulders tighten, but you keep gripping, telling yourself that holding on means surviving. Letting go, that feels like death. But here's the strange truth. It's not the fall that breaks us. It's the resistance to the fall. Somewhere deep inside, we all fear letting go of people, of memories, of roles we've wrapped our identity around. We've been told to fight, to try harder, to hold tighter. But what if peace begins the moment we stop? What if letting go is not the end, but the beginning? This is not a story of giving up. This is the story of remembering who you truly are, underneath the noise, beneath the masks, beyond all the things you thought defined you. It is the story of your freedom, the moment your destiny begins. Chapter 1, The Art of Holding On, Why We Cling Even When It Hurts. You're cleaning out your closet and find a box of old letters, love notes, and photos. You haven't looked at them in years, yet something stops you from tossing them. They represent a version of you, someone you used to be, someone you maybe still wish you were. You tell yourself it's just nostalgia, but it's more than that. From an evolutionary standpoint, humans are wired to cling, to tribes, to roles, to what feels safe. In Buddhism, this is known as upadana, grasping, attachment. We hold on to identities because they anchor us. We cling to beliefs because they give shape to chaos. In the Theravāda teachings, the cause of suffering is T, a letter 1E47H, a macron, craving. But craving doesn't just mean desire. It's deeper than that. It's the mental reflex of grasping for what's slipping away. In 2007, researchers discovered that the brain interprets social loss, like heartbreak or rejection, the same way it processes physical pain. The brain says, if I let go of this person, this role, this future, I might not survive. So we resist, even if it's hurting us. We'd rather stay in pain than face the unknown. Sound familiar? Susan was 42. Her marriage of 17 years had turned into cold silence and buried resentment. Every part of her screamed to leave, but she stayed, for the kids, for appearances, for fear of starting over. One night while folding laundry, she found an old wedding photo and burst into tears. Not because she missed the man, but because she missed who she thought she was in that photo. When she finally let go, it wasn't glamorous. It was grief, chaos, guilt. But a year later, she said something profound. I didn't lose myself when I let go. I found the version of me that was waiting underneath all that pain. The Buddha once said, just as a flame cannot exist without fuel, the self cannot exist without clinging. That hits hard, doesn't it? We construct who we are by what we hold on to. I'm a mother. I'm a CEO. I'm someone who was wronged. I'm a failure. But what happens when all those identities are stripped away? It feels terrifying. It also feels like truth. In Mahayana philosophy, this fear is addressed directly through sunyata, emptiness. But don't misunderstand, emptiness doesn't mean nihilism. It means freedom. The self is not a fixed thing. It's a dance of conditions. You're not your thoughts. You're not your pain. You're not your past. You are the awareness witnessing it all. When you understand this, not just intellectually, but viscerally, you begin to release the false anchors. Let's try something right now. Sit. Breathe in for 4 counts. Hold for 2. Exhale for 6. Do this 3 times. Now ask, what am I holding right now, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, that no longer serves me? Just observe it. Don't judge. Letting go starts here, not in a grand gesture, but in small breaths of awareness. In the next chapter, we'll go deeper into the fear behind the clinging, why we equate letting go with death, and how modern psychology and Buddhist wisdom offer a way through. Chapter 2, The Fear of Disappearance, Why Letting Go Feels Like Dying. There is a silence so deep it frightens us. It's the silence that comes when a relationship ends, when the job title disappears, when the children leave, when the person we used to be no longer fits who we are now. This silence is not empty. It is the space where something sacred begins, but most people run from it. Why? Because the moment we start to let go, it feels like a little death. And in many ways, it is. Neuroscientifically speaking, letting go activates the same threat responses in the brain as physical danger. The amygdala, our ancient fight or flight center, can't tell the difference between the end of a relationship and a bear chasing us in the woods. It screams, danger, you're losing something that keeps you safe. So we panic, we ruminate. We beg to go back to how it was. But here's the truth. Most of what we fear losing is the illusion that things are in our control. In the Theravāda texts, the Buddha described the 5 aggregates skandhas: form, feeling, perception, mental formations, and consciousness. We construct ourselves from these like a child stacks blocks. But just like blocks, they shift and fall. And the mind, out of fear, tries to stack them tighter. We try to control our emotions, control our partner, control the outcome, control death. But as the Buddha taught, whatever is of the nature to arise is of the nature to cease. Letting go threatens our ego's illusion of permanence. And that illusion, it's what the ego feeds on. Think of someone drowning. What causes the most suffering? Not the water, not the current, it's the flailing, the panic, the resistance. When they stop fighting and start floating, even if the waves are high, they no longer drown. Letting go is not about sinking. It's about learning how to float with life instead of fighting it. Psychologist Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." Letting go brings the unconscious to light. We grieve not just the thing we lost, but the identity we built around it, the meaning we projected onto it, the illusion of control we thought we had. This feels like a death, but as Jung taught, true transformation always includes a descent into darkness. That descent is not the end. It is the threshold. A real story, David's retirement. David, 61, was a successful architect. He was respected, well-paid, admired. Then retirement came. Suddenly, no more meetings, no more decisions. No more being needed. David spiraled into depression, not because he lacked purpose, but because he had confused his purpose with his role. He didn't fear being old, he feared being nothing. Only when he started meditating, daily walks, Buddhist readings, and writing about his fears, did something shift. One morning, watching a bird perch on a windowsill, he wrote in his journal, "Maybe the bird doesn't care that no one applauds it. Maybe it sings because that's what it does." In Mahāyāna Buddhism, the path is not about self-improvement. It's about self-transcendence. There is nothing to improve, only illusions to release. The ego that says, "I am this, and I must have that," is not your true self. It is your conditioning, your pain, your fear, pretending to be your identity. When we let go of the ego's grasp, we begin to see the true nature of mind, luminous, spacious, aware. And that awareness doesn't die. It watches death happen like a witness watches the tide recede. Let's not try to fix it. Let's sit with it. Close your eyes, breathe gently. Now imagine letting go of one identity. Not all of you, just one label: mother, leader, fixer, victim, warrior, savior. Watch what comes up: grief, rage, relief. Let it come. Then ask gently, if I am not this, what remains? Just stay with the question. That's where your freedom lives. In the next chapter, we'll explore what happens when you hold on too long, how it affects your relationships, your body, your choices, and how liberation begins when you see the cost. Chapter 3, when holding on becomes a cage, the cost of not letting go. At first, holding on feels noble. It feels like loyalty, like strength, like survival. But over time, it begins to feel like suffocation. Have you ever clung so tightly to something that it started to change who you are? A relationship, an old regret, a grudge, a version of yourself. Holding on becomes a cage when it starts to dictate how we see the world, how we trust others, how we show up for life. Psychologists call this cognitive entrenchment, the mind becoming stuck in a fixed identity, belief, or emotional loop. In Buddhist terms, this is dukkha, not just suffering, but stuckness, constriction, tightness. The Buddha taught that suffering arises from attachment to impermanent things. But let's go deeper. We don't just attach to things. We attach to stories about what should have happened, beliefs about who we are, images of how others see us. This creates a fire inside, a burning that consumes our peace. And the longer we feed it, the harder it is to imagine a life without it. Real story, Angela's grudge. Angela's sister betrayed her publicly, viciously, unforgivably. For 15 years, Angela replayed that moment like a scene from a play. She said, "If I let go, she wins," but what actually happened? Her sister moved on. Angela did not. The wound became her identity. She was no longer Angela, the artist. She was Angela, the betrayed. Only when she began therapy and Buddhist meditation did she ask, what if letting go isn't about them winning, but about me no longer losing? In Mahāyāna texts, liberation comes not from controlling life, but from seeing through its illusions. You don't need to burn the cage. You just have to realize the door was never locked. Ask yourself, what am I still holding onto that is holding me back? Then write the emotion, the story beneath it, the cost of carrying it. What would change if you set it down? This is not erasure. It's sacred release. It's not forgetting. It's remembering that you are more than what hurt you. Chapter 4, Real love doesn't cling, releasing without abandoning. Love is often confused with attachment. We think, if I let go, it means I didn't love deeply enough. But in truth, letting go is sometimes the deepest form of love. Because it says, I trust you, I trust myself, I trust life. The Buddha taught 4 boundless states of love. 1 metta, loving kindness. 2 karuna, compassion. 3 mudita, sympathetic joy. 4 upekkha, equanimity. Clinging is not on that list, because clinging comes from fear. Real love comes from freedom. James watched his mother fade from cancer. He tried everything to keep her alive. He pushed treatments, pressured doctors, fought time, until one day she said, "I'm tired, sweetheart, I'm ready to go. Can you let me?" In that moment, James finally stopped fighting. He sat with her, held her hand, and just loved her, not to keep her, but to walk her home. He later said, "That was the purest love I've ever felt. No grasping, just presence." Psychologist David Richo writes, "Love in its purest form doesn't say, 'I need you to complete me.' It says, 'I see you, I honor you,' even if you walk away." This echoes Buddhist non-attachment, not coldness, but care without control. Close your eyes, picture someone you love but feel afraid to lose. Whisper gently, "You are free, I love you and I release you." Notice what arises. This is not detachment, it is liberated love. Chapter 5, Learning to Float, the Practice of Release. Letting go is not a one-time event, it's a daily practice. Like a river, your life will keep moving. But you get to choose, will you flail or will you float? The Buddha compared the mind to a monkey, always grasping, jumping. Through meditation, we learn not to tame the monkey, but to watch it without reacting. This is the essence of mindfulness. Brain imaging shows that meditation shrinks the amygdala, reducing fear. It increases the prefrontal cortex, responsible for clarity and calm. Letting go becomes easier not by force, but by rewiring the brain toward peace. Mark, a trauma survivor, couldn't let go of what happened in his childhood. No amount of talking helped until he found breathwork. Every morning, 10 minutes. Inhale, hold, exhale. He said each breath was like a small surrender. And eventually I felt the tightness melt. Letting go is not a grand awakening. It's 1,000 small releases. Every morning ask, what am I clinging to today? Can I soften even 1%? Then breathe, move, write, pray. Do it again tomorrow. That is the path. Chapter 6, What Remains, the Return to Awareness. Once everything falls away, who are you? Not your job, not your title, not your grief, not even your body. You are the one who witnesses. The Buddha's final instruction was simple. Be a light unto yourself, not cling to him, not escape pain, but awaken to the awareness that never leaves you. That's what remains when you let go. In Mahāyāna teachings, what's left after letting go is not a void, but space for everything. Room for love, room for peace, room for you to just be. You become like the sky holding clouds, storms, sun. Unchanged by any of them, sit in stillness. Breathe. Ask, what remains when I stop trying to fix, control, define? Let the question open your heart, not answer your mind. Stay there. This is your home. Letting go isn't the end. It's the turning of the page, not into emptiness, but into clarity. You don't let go to lose, you let go to return. To the awareness that sees with love, to the soul that needs no title, to the heart that can say goodbye and still remain whole. If you're holding on right now, gently ask yourself, is this weight or is this who I really am? And if it's weight, set it down. You don't have to drop it all at once. Just loosen your grip. One breath, one truth, one sacred letting go. This is where your destiny begins. Let go, dear one. You're not falling. You're finally being carried.